All right, Cardinal family, let's talk about walkthroughs. First of all, I love walkthroughs. Being in classrooms and hanging out and watching good instruction is the favorite part of my job for me. But I also want to talk a little bit about our history of walkthroughs at Crete Public Schools, a failure I had, and how we hope to remedy that in the future. So my first year here at Crete Public Schools 2 years ago, I think we did some really good work with walkthroughs. We really dialed in our frequency. We set a high expectation for that. I was so proud of our building level administrators. Collectively that year, 2 years ago, they had almost 1,000 walkthroughs. Now, not all of those were with me. The lion's share were without me, but I got to be in on a lot of those, and I believe it had a great impact on us as leaders knowing what's going on in the classroom and being able to provide good feedback to support, validate, and enhance what you do in the classroom. For year two, I wanted to change things up a little bit. We decided to dial back the frequency because I wanted to do fewer walkthroughs, but then go in depth on those walkthroughs that we did have and provide an elevated level of feedback. So rather than when it used to be 2 years ago, we'd hit one right after the other. We'd go to classroom, come out into the hallway, talk about what we saw, talk about the feedback we could give the teachers, and then I went on to the next one. And last year, we did something different. We would do one walkthrough, and then we'd go back to an office, and we just talk about that 10 minutes we saw in the classroom for 20, 30, 40 minutes. And that's where we developed our feedback for the teachers. I really believe in that format, but we sacrificed too much quantity. We did not get into classrooms. I did not get into classrooms near as much as I had been the year before. So I wanted to talk a little bit about my walkthrough protocol with teachers, with principals this year, and what you can expect. So if you were here last year, you might remember I did a post where I went through the questions that we would ask after we were in your classroom, tweaked those a little bit, and I want to let you know what they are and how we hope to fix the level of frequency from last year and dial that back up while still having really good in-depth conversations that provide you with good feedback after we're done. So opening up the questions on my phone. So my first question that I have for my building level leaders after we do a walkthrough is, when is our next appointment? So that we make sure we get that scheduled right away, and we're going to try to make that happen the next week. I would love it if I could get into a classroom every week in every building to do a good walkthrough. I think that's maybe a little overly ambitious, but if we try, we're more likely to hit it. Next thing, we just do a general question. So what did we see? And just have a free-form conversation about the different things we saw in the classroom, what we thought about it, what we noticed, what we can validate, what we can enhance. Next question, we ask about the learning target. What was the learning target? Did we see a learning target? Do the activities that we are engaging in the classroom move us towards that learning target? What elements did we see that could be scored? And then we talk about some of our Marzano elements, whatever ones we happen to see in that time, and what it would look like for a score. Now, again, that's as much for our learning as it is for your feedback. We're all trying to get better at the Marzano model. We're all trying to understand it better, and we're trying to hold ourselves accountable every time we're in a classroom to looking for those elements and talking about what would that score be and why would it be that score. Next question, we ask, if you're an experienced teacher with us, how did this compare to what we would have seen in the classroom a year ago? Again, I know I say this phrase a lot. I'm a big believer in faster than last year, that whatever we were doing last year, we can be a little bit better this year. So if we talk about what we would have seen last year, we can talk about that body of work, and we can talk about how does this compare to how much we've grown as instructors over the last year. Next question we ask is, if we came back in and we saw this lesson again, exact same lesson, what would we want to see more of? What would we want to see less of? This question has been on the list for a long time, but I've also tweaked it a little bit. What would students say about the lesson? And then we talk through what we think the students would say about the experience they had in the classroom and the time that we watched. And then I have a follow-up for that question this year. What do we want the students to say about this lesson? What is our hopeful aspiration that if we asked a student about this lesson, what input, what feedback are they hoping we would get from the student? From there we go. The conversation that we just had about what we saw in that walkthrough, and that notion, what would we want our students to say about their time in that lesson during that instruction? Do we have the feedback that we need to give the teacher so they get the right validation and enhancement? And then we go through and we just talk about, all right, what's our feedback going to look like and when's it going to happen? So when you see me in your classroom, and tell you what, a lot of you are used to it, and I appreciate how comfortable you are and how welcoming you are when I do come into your classroom. I know we have a lot of new folks too. Don't be scared. We're going to be okay. I'm going to come into your classroom with some administrators. We're going to hang out. We're going to validate the great things you do, and we're going to try to give you ideas to get better. So that's what walkthroughs look like this year. That's the questions that we're going to ask when we're done, and what we're going to build our feedback on for you so that we can, again, faster than last year, maybe even faster than last week, every time just a little bit better. All right, that's all I have for you, Cardinal family. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.